It was the night my boyfriend canceled my birthday dinner for another woman. I still thought I was the crazy one. I told myself I was overreacting, that I was insecure, that I was the problem. 2 weeks later, he was in handcuffs, bleeding in a parking garage, and everyone finally knew the truth he spent years hiding. Before we get into this, if you've ever been made to feel crazy for trusting your instincts, if you've ever been second place in your own relationship, hit like, subscribe, and stay with me, because this story is about what happens when the truth stops being quiet. I'm 26 years old, and for most of last year, I genuinely thought I was losing my mind. Not in a dramatic internet joke way. I mean the real kind, the slow creeping kind where you replay conversations in your head at 3 in the morning, wondering how the same words can mean something completely different depending on who's saying them. Matthew was 28 when we met. We're introduced at one of those low-effort, high-chaos friend cookouts where nobody really knows whose grill it is and everyone's drinking warm beer out of red cups. He was funny without trying too hard, and attentive in that rare way that makes you feel like you're the only person in the conversation even when there are 10 people around. I remember thinking, okay, this one might actually be different, and for a while we started dating casually, then exclusively. Texting turned into phone calls. Phone calls turned into nights together. Inside jokes formed. Routine settled in. The kind of relationship that feels easy enough that you stop bracing for the other shoe to drop. That was before Alessia. Matthew told me about her early. That should have been the green flag. She's basically my sister, he said one night, scrolling through his phone. We've been best friends since freshman year of college. Nothing weird, nothing romantic, ever. I remember nodding, smiling, being the cool girlfriend, because I was the cool girlfriend. I had guy friends. My childhood best friend was a guy named Jimmy. We'd survived braces, bad haircuts, and high school drama together. I wasn't threatened by female friendships. I didn't want to be that girl. But Alessia didn't act like a sister. She called at 2 in the morning, not because something was wrong. Not because there was an emergency, just because she was bored. The first time it happened, Matthew and I were in bed. Lights off, covers pulled up. That soft quiet where you're halfway between awake and asleep. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. Once, twice, then again. He didn't hesitate. Just picked it up and answered like it was noon on a Tuesday. Hey, he said softly, smiling. What's up? I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to him laugh, listening to him murmur things like, yeah, that's crazy, and no way will I pretended to sleep. 40 minutes. 40 minutes later, he hung up, kissed my forehead, and rolled over like nothing had happened. Who was that? I asked. Oh, he said casually. Just Alessia. She couldn't sleep. Like that explained everything. I told myself it was fine. I told myself I was being sensitive. I told myself not to start problems where there weren't any, but it didn't stop. She called during our dinner dates. She texted nonstop during movie nights. In one night, at a reservation-only seafood place downtown, white tablecloths, candlelight, the kind of restaurant you dress up for, she called him 3 times in a row. Matthew excused himself. 20 minutes passed. My crab cakes went cold. People around me kept glancing over, probably wondering why a woman was sitting alone at a table meant for 2, staring at her phone like it had personally betrayed her. When he came back, I said something. I told him it hurt, that it was embarrassing. He sighed. She's going through a lot, he said. I couldn't just ignore her. And when I asked why her problems always seemed to matter more than our plans, he looked at me like I'd said something insane. You're overreacting, he told me. I came back, didn't I? That was the first time I felt something crack inside me. But the key was when everything started to rot. 4 months into our relationship, I decided to surprise him with breakfast one Saturday morning. Coffee, pastries, his favorite place. I let myself into his apartment, and there she was. Alessia was sitting on his couch in sweatpants and one of his old college shirts, eating cereal, watching TV like she paid rent. She looked at me. Oh, she said. You must be the girlfriend. Matthew's in the shower. Then she turned back to the TV. I stood there holding a paper bag that suddenly felt humiliatingly loud. When Matthew came out, he kissed me, thanked me for breakfast, and acted like this was normal. Like another woman being in his apartment, wearing his clothes, at 9 in the morning, wasn't worth mentioning. Later, when I asked why she had a key, he got annoyed. She's had it for years, he said. You need to stop being so insecure. That word insecure became his favorite weapon. Every concern I raised got labeled. Insecure, calling, jealous. Eventually, I started believing him. I asked my mom, I asked myself, I wondered if I was the problem, and then my birthday came, and Matthew made me believe, just for a second, that I mattered most. He planned everything, made the reservation, hyping up my gift, texting hearts. We got dressed, nails done, new dress, waiting. At 5:45 p.m., my phone buzzed. Hey babe, his text said, Alessia's going through a really bad breakup and needs me tonight. Can we do dinner tomorrow? I stared at my screen. My birthday, canceled, for her. That was the moment something inside me went completely silent. Because deep down, I already knew. And the next morning, when I saw the Instagram story of them smiling at a candlelit restaurant with my necklace around her neck, I realized this wasn't just disrespect, this was betrayal. And I was done being quiet. The worst part wasn't the photo, it was the calm. That eerie, disorienting calm that settles in after something shatters so completely your brain doesn't even know how to panic yet. I remember sitting at my kitchen table the morning after my birthday, scrolling back and forth between Alessia's Instagram story and Matthew's text, hope you had a good night. Let's do dinner tonight. Love you, love you. Like he hadn't detonated our relationship and walked away smiling. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Every time I picked up my phone, my hands started shaking again, not the soft kind of shaking you get from nerves, but the violent teeth-gritting kind that comes from suppressed rage. I kept replaying everything. The late night calls, the key, the gaslighting, the word insecure weaponized like a gavel, and now the necklace. The same necklace he'd shown me online months earlier. The one I'd smiled at and said, that would be perfect. The one he later told me was sold out. It was empty, it wasn't sold out. It was just never meant for me. By noon, my sadness had curdled into something sharper, something clearer. I opened Alessia's profile and scrolled. There were dozens of photos of her and Matthew concerts, restaurants, holiday gatherings, his parents' house. His arm always around her shoulder in that casual, intimate way that says this person belongs here. Captions jumped out at me. My favorite person. Nobody gets me like you do. So lucky to have this one. And suddenly I understood why I'd never been invited to family events. Why everything with Matthew always felt provisional, temporary, like I was borrowing space that already belonged to someone else. I called him. He answered cheerfully. Hey, birthday girl, you ready for dinner tonight? I saw Alessia's Instagram story, I said. Silence, not confusion, not denial. Just silence. When he finally spoke, he said, okay. I asked him to explain the necklace, the restaurant, the timing. He talked in circles. Coincidences, misunderstandings. You're reading into things. When I pushed harder, he flipped the script. You're always looking for reasons to be mad at me, he said. This is about your insecurity, not me. Then came the line that changed everything. Alessia's noticed this too, he said. She's mentioned before that you seem jealous of our friendship, so they talked about me, judged me, diagnosed me, decided I was the problem. I told him I needed space. He told me I was being dramatic. We hung up. That night, my best friend Grace came over with wine and ice cream, and I cried until my head hurt. She listened without interrupting, then said something that lodged itself in my chest like a splinter. You don't sound jealous, she said. You said ignored. The next few days were surreal. Matthew texted me like nothing had happened. Good morning, how's work, memes, inside jokes, every message felt like an insult. By Saturday, I was emotionally exhausted, and that's when Russell messaged me. Russell was one of Matthew's college friends, quiet, thoughtful, the kind of guy who observed more than he spoke. He'd texted me happy birthday the day of something Matthew's other friends hadn't done. Hey, he wrote. Matthew mentioned you guys were having a rough time. Just wanted to check in and see if you're okay. Something about the way he phrased it careful, measured made my stomach drop. I asked what Matthew had told the group. Russell hesitated, then said he told everyone you were getting jealous about Alessia again and blowing things out of proportion. Of course he did. Matthew was preemptively rewriting history, making sure that when things finally exploded, everyone would already know who the villain was supposed to be. I asked Russell the question that had been clawing at my chest for months. Do you really think Alessia is just a friend? There was a long pause. And I think you deserve to know the full picture before you make any decisions. We met that Tuesday. A taco place near my neighborhood. Casual, neutral ground. Russell sat across from me, hands folded, eyes serious. How much do you actually know about Matthew and Alessia? He asked. I told him everything Matthew had said. Russell nodded slowly. That's the version he tells everyone. Then he told me the truth. They'd never officially dated, but they'd hooked up. Multiple times. Usually when Matthew was between relationships. Sometimes when things were complicated. A backup plan disguised as friendship. I wasn't the first girlfriend to be made uncomfortable. I wasn't the first to be gaslit. I wasn't the first to walk away doubting my sanity. Russell told me about Vera, 2 years with Matthew. Never met the family. Constantly apologizing for her feelings. Alessia, meanwhile, had been to holidays. The room felt too small. Everything clicked into place with sickening clarity. Matthew wasn't confused. He wasn't naive. He wasn't innocent. He was strategic. He kept Alessia close enough to never lose her while convincing every girlfriend that the problem was their own insecurity. By the time I left that taco place, my hands were steady. I wasn't crazy. I'd never been crazy. The next day, I texted Matthew, we need to talk. He showed up with flowers. I asked him to tell me the truth. He tried to dodge, then minimized, then admitted just enough to feel honest. Yes, they'd hooked up, but it was years ago. Yes, he bought the necklace, but it meant nothing. Yes, he canceled my birthday, but I should have been more understanding. Excuse after excuse, never accountability. When I finally said we were done, he laughed. Is this really about Alessia again? He said, you're proving her right. It was the moment I stood up. I told him to leave, and for the first time since I'd met him, I meant it. Matthew didn't accept the breakup. He reacted to it. At first, it was subtle, the kind of behavior that makes you second guess whether you're imagining things, late night texts. Just checking in. Miss you. You know I'd do anything to fix this. When I didn't respond, he escalated. He showed up at my apartment to talk. Left voicemails that swung wildly between remorse and irritation, sent long paragraphs about how I was throwing away something real over rumors. Then came the shift. The guilt stopped working, so he reached for control. Beal told mutual friends I'd had a breakdown, that I was emotionally unstable, that I'd accused him of cheating without proof. And Alessia? She unfollowed me. Petty, calculated, loud. That was when I stopped reacting emotionally and started paying attention. Because when someone is desperate to control the narrative, it means they're afraid of what happens if they don't. I didn't block him. I didn't confront him. I let him talk. And Matthew talked. A lot. He complained about Alessia, how she was clingy, how she always wanted clarity. He complained about his exes. He complained about how hard it was to just be a good guy when women were so sensitive. Every message was a confession he didn't realize he was making. I screenshot everything, not for revenge, for clarity. Meanwhile, Russell stayed in quiet contact. He didn't gossip, he observed. And one night, he sent me a message that made my stomach drop. Hey, just so you know, Matthew and Alessia are fighting, badly. Apparently, Alessia had started asking questions. Why he still texted me, why he kept deleting messages, why he hadn't told her about his past with Vera or me, the same questions I'd asked, the same gaslighting responses, and Alessia wasn't having it. Matthew had always relied on one thing, keeping women isolated from each other, but now, the walls were collapsing. A week later, Alessia posted a vague Instagram story, when you finally realize you weren't special, just convenient. Not out of cruelty, out of recognition. Then something unexpected happened. Vera messaged me, I don't know if you remember me, she wrote, But I dated Matthew before you. I think we need to talk. We met for coffee. And just like Russell had warned, the patterns were identical. It was the birthday letdowns, the secrecy, the friend who was always just a little too close, the way Matthew framed every concern as emotional instability. By the time we finished our drinks, there were 4 of us in a group chat. Me, Vera, another ex named Leela, and eventually Alessia. No insult. No attacks, just timelines, screenshots, receipts, and suddenly the man who'd spent years playing women against each other had nowhere left to hide. Matthew found out when Alessia confronted him with proof he couldn't twist. He called me 23 times that night. I didn't answer a single one. The next morning, his number was blocked. But the damage was already done. Friends started asking questions. Stories stopped lining up. The crazy ex narrative collapsed under its own weight. And Matthew, he disappeared, deleted social media, stopped showing up to group events, quietly lost the version of himself he'd worked so hard to protect. I didn't expose him publicly, I didn't post receipts, I didn't win loudly, I just stepped back and watched the truth move faster than any lie ever could. Because here's the thing, Matthew never understood, you don't have to destroy someone to end their power. You just have to stop protecting their secrets. The quiet after everything fell apart was strange. No more buzzing phone, no more anxiety before opening messages, no more wondering if I was too much for wanting honesty, just silence. And for the first time in a long time, that silence felt safe. At first, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop for Matthew to reappear with an apology so polished it almost sounded sincere. But days passed, then weeks, and nothing happened. People started telling me things. He's been really weird lately. He doesn't come around anymore. He just vanished. I nodded, listened, let it roll past me, because I wasn't interested in his downfall, only my peace. What surprised me most was Alessia. She reached out quietly, no defensiveness, no excuses. I owe you an apology, she wrote. I believed what he said about you. I didn't gloat. I didn't lecture. I just said, I get it. He was very convincing. We talked not as rivals, but as 2 people who'd finally compared notes after being kept apart for years. And in that conversation, something unexpected happened. I let go. Not because he deserved forgiveness, but because I deserve freedom. Healing wasn't dramatic. It was small things. Sleeping through the night, laughing without checking my phone, enjoying birthdays again, trusting my instincts without apologizing for them. I started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand why I doubted myself for so long. And here's what I learned. Manipulation doesn't always look like cruelty. Sometimes it looks like charm. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like someone telling you you're overthinking until you forget how to trust your own mind. Matthew didn't ruin me. He revealed me, stronger, clearer, unwilling to accept half-truths dressed up as love. Months later, I ran into him once by accident. He looked smaller. Not physically, emotionally. He tried to smile. I nodded politely and kept walking. No anger, no satisfaction, just closure. And that's the part people don't talk about. Revenge isn't always loud, it isn't always public, it doesn't always come with an apology. Sometimes revenge is waking up one day and realizing you're happy and they no longer matter. If this story taught you something, hit the like button, subscribe for more stories like this, and share it with a friend who needs to hear it. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.